Imagine this for a moment. You are standing on a huge dusty battlefield. Behind you are only 500 knights wearing heavy armor and sitting on powerful war horses. Now look ahead. Across the field, stretching as far as your eyes can see, is an enormous army of 26,000 enemy soldiers marching toward you. That means for every one knight, there are more than 50 enemy soldiers. Most people would think the battle is already lost. But here's the surprising part. This exact situation really happened in history. And even more shocking, the tiny army of 500 knights actually won. The leader of that small army was a teenage king named Baldwin IV of Jerusalem. He was only 16 years old, and he was also very sick with a disease called leprosy. Even though his body was weak, his courage was incredibly strong. So how did a young, sick king and 500 knights defeat a huge army of 26,000 soldiers? To understand that amazing victory, we first need to understand the young king himself. King Baldwin IV became king of Jerusalem when he was still a child. When he was young, his teachers noticed something strange about him. He couldn't feel pain in his hands. At first this seemed unusual, but doctors later realized the truth. Baldwin had leprosy, a serious disease that slowly damages nerves in the body. Over time, people with leprosy lose feeling in their hands, feet, and sometimes even their faces. For most people in the Middle Ages, this illness meant a quiet life far away from danger. But Baldwin refused to live that way. Even though he was sick, he trained hard to become a leader. He practiced horse riding, fighting, and military strategy. His teachers said he was smart, brave, and determined. And those qualities would soon be tested. Because at the same time Baldwin ruled Jerusalem, a powerful leader was rising in the Middle East. His name was Saladin. Saladin was one of the most famous generals in history. He ruled large lands including Egypt, Syria, and other regions. He was known for being both a skilled warrior and a clever leader. But Saladin had one major goal. He wanted to capture Jerusalem. Jerusalem was extremely important to both Christians and Muslims. Controlling the city meant power, influence, and religious importance. In the year 1177, Saladin decided it was time to attack. So he gathered a huge army of about 26,000 soldiers and marched toward Jerusalem. Compared to Baldwin's army, Saladin's force was enormous. Most people believed the kingdom of Jerusalem would fall easily. Even some of Baldwin's allies thought there was no chance to stop Saladin. But something important happened during Saladin's march. He became too confident. Saladin believed the Crusaders were weak and scattered. Because of this, he thought the invasion would be easy. His soldiers began spreading out across the countryside. Some soldiers started raiding villages to take supplies. Others stopped to rest or search for food. Some traveled far from the main army. Instead of staying in a tight formation, the army stretched across many miles of land. In other words, the army was not ready for battle. Meanwhile, inside Jerusalem, King Baldwin received the news that Saladin was coming. He quickly gathered every soldier he could find. But there was a big problem. He could only gather about 500 knights and a few thousand infantry soldiers. Compared to Saladin's 26,000 troops, this was a tiny force. Many advisors told Baldwin it was too dangerous to fight. They suggested staying inside Jerusalem's strong walls and waiting for Saladin to attack. But Baldwin understood something important. If Saladin surrounded the city, the people inside might run out of food and water. The kingdom could collapse without even fighting. So Baldwin made a bold decision. He decided to attack Saladin first. Before the army left Jerusalem, Baldwin did something very special. He ordered priests to bring a sacred Christian relic called the True Cross. Many people believed this relic was part of the actual cross that Jesus was crucified on. The priests carried the relic in front of the army while the soldiers prayed. Seeing this powerful symbol gave the soldiers hope and courage. They believed God was protecting them. Their fear slowly turned into determination. With their spirits lifted, Baldwin led his small army south towards Saladin's massive force. Soon, scouts discovered Saladin's army near a place called Montgisard, which is in modern-day Israel. When Baldwin saw the situation, he realized something surprising. Saladin's army was not organized. Many soldiers were still scattered across the countryside. The main army had not formed proper battle lines. This meant Baldwin had one small chance. If he attacked quickly and with great force, he might break the enemy before they had time to prepare. So Baldwin made a daring choice. He ordered his knights to launch a full cavalry charge. Imagine hundreds of armored knights riding powerful horses across an open field. Their armor shining in the sunlight. Their long lances pointed forward. Their horses galloping faster and faster. The ground shaking beneath them. In medieval times, knights were like the tanks of the battlefield. They wore heavy armor and rode warhorses trained to crash into enemy lines. When Baldwin's knights slammed into Saladin's scattered troops, the result was explosive. The enemy soldiers were caught completely by surprise. Many were still preparing for battle. Others were resting. Some didn't even realize an attack had started. The sudden charge caused panic everywhere. Soldiers began shouting and running. Lines broke apart. Horses trampled through groups of men. Weapons and shields dropped to the ground. And Baldwin's knights kept attacking again and again. Each charge made the confusion worse. Soon, the giant army began to collapse. Instead of fighting together, soldiers started running away. The retreat quickly turned into chaos. Thousands of soldiers fled the battlefield. Some threw away their weapons so they could run faster. Even the powerful General Saladin barely escaped with a small group of bodyguards. What had seemed impossible had just happened. A tiny army led by a 16-year-old king with leprosy had defeated one of the strongest armies in the region. This incredible victory became known as the Battle of Montgisard. People across the Middle East and Europe were shocked by the news. The victory saved the Kingdom of Jerusalem for several more years. It also showed something very important about battles. Numbers alone do not always decide who wins. Sometimes surprise, speed, leadership, and courage can change everything. But the story did not end there. Saladin eventually rebuilt his army and learned from his mistakes. Over the next few years, he became even stronger. Meanwhile, King Baldwin's illness slowly became worse. As he grew older, he had trouble using his hands and feet. But even when his body was weak, his spirit stayed strong. He continued ruling and defending his kingdom until his death in 1185, when he was only in his early 20s. Even though Baldwin died young, people remembered his bravery. Because during one incredible moment in history, he showed the world that even the smallest army can achieve something extraordinary. The Battle of Montgisard teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes the biggest victories happen when people refuse to give up, even when everything seems impossible. And that is why the story of 500 knights defeating 26,000 soldiers is still told today. If you enjoyed learning about this amazing moment in history, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you think this battle was unbelievable, wait until you hear the next story, because history is full of even more incredible moments that sound almost impossible.